The Rays enter a must-win showdown against the Yankees with October implications.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Rays podcast. Locked On Rays is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and we are Kevin and Ulysses.
And we are lifelong Rays fans who've been podcasting about the Rays since 2019.
On today's show, we'll discuss which of the newer offensive prospects give us the most hope as Rays fans. In a few minutes, we'll dive into why Bob Seymour may be a surprisingly exciting player to watch. But we'll begin with the Rays beginning a crucial series at home against the New York Yankees.
But first, we got to tell you that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. I'll tell you something. If you want to plan on a future bet for October and you're a Rays fan and you're that meme of the dog in the room filled with fire and you still think that the Rays have a shot at October, I think that there are 3 scenarios against this Yankee series and 2 cannot happen.
Okay.
You cannot split. You cannot lose this series. But we've talked off screen. I think you are saying that we could split and you still feel good about that.
I wouldn't say I'd feel great, but I would live with that. I think if you lose the series, you're pretty much in the tank. We're at a juncture. We're at a position with the Rays where every series you're playing is the most important series. It's almost like every series is an elimination series. You better win 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4. And if you got the rare 2-gamer, you got to split it. And more likely or more enjoyable would be to win that series. But, you know, a team like the Yankees, it's a tall order to say, hey, we're going to come in from a road trip, even though we have an off day, and we're going to take 2 games from them. We're going to sweep them at Steinbrenner Field, which is their spring training home, especially a Yankees team that has been toasty of late. I think they've won 5 of their last 6, and they recently swept the Cardinals. And what gives me concern and pause is I'm hoping for not deja vu of what we experienced against the Seattle Mariners, where we saw that offense explode. Well, you have the Mariners, then you have the Yankees. The Yankees are even arguably a more potent offensive team in terms of raw power and runs scored and overall metrics. So that's what has me a little bit uneasy right now. But I think with how the pitching matchups shape up, the Rays with Drew Rasmussen going on the mound on Wednesday, I think that's a good shot, a good opportunity. The game on Tuesday, Shane Baz versus Carlos Rodon, that's one I'm likely to chalk up to an L.
Because of the way that Shane Baz has been pitching lately, you cannot just say, I feel good about that matchup. The thing is, I understand what you're saying. I feel like with the 2-gamer and a team that's above you, a split does nothing. It just washes out.
Yeah.
So if maybe it you stay afloat, quote unquote, but I feel like we are past that time in the season with the record of 61 wins. You're still under 500. Like there's the time for staying level. I think we've blown over that with the way that you started the All-Star break with Cincinnati and the White Sox series.
Yeah.
So I get your point. And then when you look at the offense of the Yankees, you're just looking at 20 bombs almost per player. You got obviously Aaron Judge, you got Bellinger, you got Chisholm, you got Grisham. Ben Rice has 18. Anthony Volpe has 18. And not far away is Austin Wells with 15. So it's a potent offense. It's a minor league park. And guess what? That minor league park looks exactly like their actual stadium up there in the Bronx. So the familiarity and the fact that they play spring training is there for them. It's going to be very comfortable for all of that team to play at Steinbrenner Field. So there really isn't much of an edge that the Rays can get over here. So That's what I'm saying. You're not only just trailing the Yankees, you're trailing like 3-4 teams.
Right.
It's go time.
It really is. Yeah, because you're battling uphill against not just the Yankees, but the Guardians and the Royals and the Rangers. So there's a lot of teams that you have to leapfrog and try to unseat. And you mentioned a lot of names with offensive pop, and that's true. And then you also have a guy who is always hurt, but I think will be back in the lineup this week, Giancarlo Stanton, who in his measly 44 games he's played so far, he has 10 home runs. And then if you even go further beyond that, a guy, I know he's lost some of the power stroke, but Paul Goldschmidt, I mean, he's a reliable bat through and through. So it's a tough sell against this Yankees team. And the Rays have struggled against New York this year. They're 4-7. And I believe I think the run scored to run against is a 10-run differential. So they really have their hands full. And credit to the Yankees for going out and saying, okay, we've got guys with a lot of power. We've traditionally been known as just, hey, we hit home runs and we go station to station on the bases. Well, to try to mitigate that or to try to level things up a little bit, what do? They go out and acquire Rays player Jose Caballero, who brings a different dimension in terms of versatility, and we know can run the bases like crazy. So
yeah,
kind of a little bit of an ace in the hole of you got a guy that can run around the bases and play a bunch of different positions and fill in when needed as a utility guy. And then you got, 7-8 guys that can hit a home run on a whim.
It does seem like a more complete team. You got Chisholm with 21 stolen bases, Volpe with 15, Jason Dominguez with 20, and obviously the leader in Jose Caballero, X-Ray legend, obviously with them now in the pinstripe. So first, that'll be kind of cool seeing Jose Caballero back.
Yes.
I'm sure okay. Yes or no? Will there be a thank you video to Jose Caballero, or is a year and a half too little?
I think that's too little.
I think that's too little for me.
If it had been 3 or 4 years, maybe,
right.
But it's not like he was an all-star. Did he break any major records as a Ray?
No.
I mean, he did.
He let the stolen base crown last year, but like in my opinion, those should be reserved for like dudes that were there for longer than a year and a half.
Right, 100%. And I mean, for his credit, though, he did step in as the stopgap when we were dealing with the Wander Franco mess, and we needed somebody to kind of fill the void for a year and a half, and he did that. I mean, he was a solid player, but it's not like when the Rays traded Jose Caballero to the Yankees, I lost a bunch of sleep over it. I mean, we knew it was an inevitability at some point.
And again, he's a solid player, so good for him to get to a team that always has October aspirations.
I'll say this: there'll probably be a tweet or a Facebook post from the Rays of, "Hey, great to see Caballero back at the Stein," something to that effect. But as far as a whole promo video on the Jumbotron, I would be surprised if that happened.
I would like it if it were to happen. I would love it if the Rays are beating the Yankees.
Yes.
if that was to happen. But again, 2-game series. The Yankees are hot. They just swept the Cardinals, like you're saying. You've gone 4-7. It's go time. I understand that the splitting does give you thought that, okay, we're putting the pause, button on October, just like nothing happened. If you split, I feel like you have to win if you want to make a statement, and 2 little games, too many teams in front of you.
Yeah. So really you're kind of at the point where every series from here on out, the Rays have to win at least 2 games, whether it's a 2-game series or a 3-game series, they got to take 2.
Because again, and I know people would be like, what are you talking about? 37 games, you've got 61 victories. If you want to get to 87, let's say 86 because you feel comfortable at 86, that's a number. Okay, fine.
And that's not even 86. That great anyway.
It's not that great. It's not that great, but you know what? If people want to play with 86, fine. Let's play in your fantasy line with 86. That means you need to win 25 of the next 37 games. You cannot lose a series. And my point is even above it. Even a 2-gamer, a split, doesn't really do anything. It might not be a detriment to the standings, but it doesn't help you at all.
Now, to kind of supplement your point here, the Rays, per a website called tankathon.com, they have the fourth toughest remaining schedule of all American League teams based on opponents' winning percentage of 509. So you just wish the Rays hadn't waited 4.5 months to get their crap together. And they really don't have it together. It's just a seesaw. It's you're hoping you can go on another crazy run for the next month and a half, but nothing's guaranteed at this point. I mean, I feel like I've harped on it a little bit, but when your lineup is, 5 rookies, many of them haven't played more than, a dozen games in a big league uniform, it's going to be tough and a little bit intimidating and shock factor when you see an Aaron Judge and a Cody Bellinger and some of the names that are on the Yankees roster. I mean, I just feel like that is kind of a factor that we don't talk about that often.
Yeah.
So,
agreed.
All right. We have much more to discuss on today's episode, including a prospect that I want to talk about. Big Bob Seymour was recently called up, and he has a prime opportunity to prove the scouting industry wrong. Well, August 26th, it's officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Maybe you want to go ahead and crown the Philadelphia Eagles as the champion in August. Well, you can do that with FanDuel. So go ahead and visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Thank you for making Locked On Rays your first listen every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Ulises, this is something we didn't have a chance to talk about that much over the weekend or on Monday's episode, but the Rays did recently call up Bob Seymour. I like to call him Big Bob Seymour because he is a very big caricature. And as you would imagine, that guy is destined to be a designated hitter. That guy is destined to maybe play some first base. But this is a guy that has, I guess, been under the radar or underrated or not giving the love in the prospect scouting industry for various reasons. I think because of the defensive limitations and the fact that he was a college player and he's always kind of had a step up as far as the competition goes in respect to his age, because he did play in college. He's always been a little bit older than some of the other prospects we talk about. But I will say this for Bob Seymour: at every level that he's been at, he has mashed. He has hit dingers. And I know there's been some concerns about his swing and miss in the strikeout rate, but you can't argue with the fact that in 105 games this season in AAA, he hit 30 bombs, had an 881 OPS and a 263 average. Now, the big question is, will it translate to the major league level? Well, we'll have to wait and see. And I would think that with the injury to Jonathan Aranda, who sustained that injury colliding with Giancarlo Stanton against the New York Yankees, that this is a window for him to show the Rays, hey, I've got it. I can make an impact. I can help this team in some shape or form. And I'm all for it. I want to see this guy have some success. I want to see this guy hit a couple bombs, because I've seen some highlights of him in AAA, and we talk about Junior Camanero's raw power. This guy has raw power as well. He's definitely not the talent of Junior Caminero, but Bob Seymour can hit a home run to center field, left field, or right field with the best of them.
It does make you think of guys that just were, like Big Poppy and Frank Thomas, like obviously Hall of Famers, but like just this massive entity that can just chuck baseballs out of the
I
stadium
know
at this point.
it's nostalgic, honestly. If you're like a 80s or a 90s kid, and I guess it harkens back a little bit to the steroid era, but guys that are 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 250, 260 pounds, they look like, construction workers, running heavy equipment. And the bat, what's in watching Bob Seymour, the bat that he holds, it literally looks like one of those Louisville Slugger mini bats. That's how big this guy is.
It's like with Aaron Judge. He's such a massive human being. You look at a bat and you're like, there's no way that's actually regulation. It's a toothpick. It's a toothpick. Yeah. So that's a fun aesthetic part of who Big Bob Seymour is. But you look at what he's done in the International League in 162 games ever since getting called up in AAA. Dude, 49 bombs between last year and this year. Like, it's no joke. The power is there. Now, can it translate? Hopefully, because the Rays do usually find themselves in a situation where they don't have a guy that can just bop one over the fence. Now, it is 37 games. It will end up being a small sample size wherever he ends up. So if he has an awful August, September rookie call-up, that means nothing to me personally.
Okay.
And if he goes off and goes and sees the ball great and is a great 900, 1,000 OPS kind of guy, that doesn't mean that that's who he is. Why? Because 37 games does not give you any sort of actual sample size to say, oh, this guy's going to be a big leaguer. Can you see flashes of something? Can you really like something? Okay, yeah, sure. But 37 games is, for me, I'm not going to just like determine who Big Bob Seymour is out of these 37. But I will say, having him in replace of Jonathan Aranda, I think it's a key opportunity for him to at least get himself acclimated to the big ball club, and then in spring training have an opportunity there. And if you're looking at this from the front office perspective, well, wouldn't you like it if he was to kind of, dominate, or not dominate, but just look good enough that his asset value can rise a little bit, and maybe that's another trade chip that you didn't know you could hold,
right,
that would have this much value if he has success in this next 37 games that you can use during the offseason to get something else of value that you might not be able to have, because you will have a logjam situation with Jonathan Aranda healthy, with Brandon Lowe playing a little bit of first base this year, with Yandy Diaz in the contract for next year. You do have a little bit of an issue there, and you've got a Trey Morgan coming up. You've got a Xavier Isaac. So Bob Seymour there is kind of having a great opportunity right now to get his stock up for the front office as well.
Yeah, to maybe prove himself, put something on tape, and then the Rays can send him to an organization perhaps that, has a need for a big bopping first baseman. Now, I mean, it seems like the Rays like him more than the industry does. I mean, they made room on the 40-man roster for him. They got rid of friend of the program, Logan Driscoll, catcher, by the way. But and honestly, not that many guys get a 37-game tryout. I mean, we've seen guys get fewer, and then they're, shipped back to AAA and never to be seen from or heard from again. But I feel like, this is Bob Seymour's time to do something and show something. And I hope at the very least he proves some people wrong, because if you look at the prospect rankings, like this season on Fangraphs, nowhere to be found on the top 56, even on MLB.com, not in the top 30. And sometimes guys slip through the cracks and wind up having a solid career for themselves. And I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Seymour ends up doing that, because, even though he played college, he's a little bit of a late bloomer. I don't know. Going back to it, I just think it's kind of cool that he's a little bit of a throwback of a big dude that hits dingers like Adam Dunn used to do.
Prospect rankings, if they were true, I mean, then we would all be getting the lottery numbers, right? And it's kind of like being a meteorologist. You can be wrong. People expect you to be wrong. Prospect rankings, I think we should take them like that, like with their little grain of salt, like, it could happen, but not necessarily. And so it would be nice for a story like this, where a guy that wasn't heralded, boom, has an actual shot. And we're saying 37 games because that's what the Rays have left for the season.
Correct.
It could be a little bit shortened if Jonathan Aranda comes back healthy.
Although I would say with the
moves.
fractured left wrist, I think that's
us playing what if game.
That's a toss up on if he's going to come back. And if he does come back, how effective is he? Because I feel like those wrist injuries are just, they're a death knell for players.
They sap your power completely. So if it were me, I know I would like Jonathan Aranda to not rush after having seen the kind of season that he can put up. This is a lost season, buddy.
Yeah.
Just get better. That's it. Do your rehab. Do fine. I want to see big Bob Seymour and other guys that, by the way, speaking of prospects, the next few weeks will be survival of the fittest for recently called up and acquired guys. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Yes, people, that time has come where pigskin is all over the place and no one is happier than Mr. Kevin Weiss. And he's happy because now he can go on Prize Picks and maybe put a little bit of green Skittles on his Indianapolis Colts or on his Tampa Bay Bucks. Yes, he's got two teams and that's okay. We can live with that, Kev. So why not? You can do that. By the way, you can use that flex play option, which is a total game changer, Kevin. I don't know if you know about that, but I would definitely do that. And you can download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. I'll repeat that. Download the Prize Picks app. Use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks. Run your game. Thank you for listening to Locked On Rays, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, talking about Big Bob Seymour. Well, there's other offensive prospects that we should keep an eye on during these next 37 games.
Yes.
Kevin, let's run them down and maybe give a little bit of a take on each of these guys. Besides Bob Seymour, we got Everson Pereira, we got Hunter Fedducia, and we've got Tristan Gray so far. We've seen a little bit of Tristan Peters as well.
I feel like that was the shot. He had a couple games to do something, and I feel like he's kind of in quad A limbo.
I think he's getting the Kevin Padlow treatment of like, okay,
Kevin Padlow got like 3 games and had, 6 strikeouts and never to be heard from or seen from again.
It was a rough time out there in Seattle, right? Was it Seattle with Tristan Peters? Yeah, I think it was Seattle.
So, yeah.
It was a tough few games there for him at the dish. But taking Mangum out, taking Simpson out of the equation, you got Seymour, you got Pereira, you got Fedducia, and you got Gray. Out of those 4, what's your podium looking like for those guys to have actual hope/success in their production?
So I would take Tristan Gray out of the equation as well. I think who is that guy, Coco Montez, that, would get called up for a game, then set back down. Tristan Gray is Coco Montez in my book. And as much as we talked about Bob Seymour in the second segment, and again, I am rooting for Bob Seymour because I just think it would be amazingly cool to have Junior Caminero protected by a guy like Bob Seymour, and if he could turn into a Kyle Schwarber type. Not saying that's going to happen. That's that's just me dreaming at this point. But a guy that steps behind Junior Caminero and is a legit 30-35 home run threat, and Junior Caminero has more opportunities to get hits of his own. Although I will say with Bob Seymour, again, take this time, soak up some advice from Yandy Diaz and Brandon Lowe and some of the other veterans on the team. But I would say, and if we're being realistic, the odds are just like the odds of the Rays making the playoffs are very low. The odds of the guys you named being stalwarts or having lengthy MLB careers is slim. It's low. A lot of guys get opportunities in the big leagues. Not that many stick around. Having said that, I think my podium would start with Hunter Fedducia, just because you, as a catcher, especially as a Rays catcher, you don't have to have that high of an offensive ceiling. And I feel like the Rays really targeted and went after Fedducia in acquiring him from the Dodgers. And I know, the numbers don't look so great at the major league level right now, but we have seen some flashes of him at the plate of, he can hit the ball the other way. He does seem to have a feel. I just think he needs more reps and more opportunities to get it all together. But I think what he does behind the dish and working with the pitching staff and being able to throw runners out, that's what's most important. And that's what's going to keep him in a major league uniform long term, especially with, the situation of the catcher position in flux. Like, how long is Nick Fortes going to be around? We just got rid of Logan Driscoll. I feel like that's kind of the guy that they're hoping steps into that role.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of hope for Hunter Fedducia, especially with what you gave up in Zach Littell. I know it was just for a rental, but it also seems, obviously Dodger prospects are always going to get the limelight, right? It's a great organization, so maybe inflated prospect rankings. But the guy did hit and was a well-regarded defensive catcher. Now, have we seen that right now with the Rays? Not necessarily. We've seen flashes, and the flashes, I've liked some of his at-bats where he looks like he's in control. Mm-hmm. So you like that, especially as a catcher when he's at the dish, seeing him under control like that. I've seen flashes of that. And then defensively speaking, I haven't seen many great things with the framing. The throwing runners out hasn't been great at all. So that has been kind of a question mark so far with Fedducia. But I will say that there was a game last start with Drew Rasmussen on the mound. Mm-hmm. It was really cool to see him and Drew just talking over almost at every half inning. I really, that's one of my favorite things, is that shot within the game of the starter talking to his battery mate, and they were engaged. And so I like that. I'm a sucker for that type of shot during a broadcast. I would put Hunter Fedducia as well, like you are, at the first spot. Then I would put Everson Pereira, just because I feel like his makeup, center field, a guy who can give you pop, not a slow guy by any means.
He has more tools than Bob Seymour. That's the thing, is we all want the 5 tools, and that's not Bob Seymour.
No. So he seems more like of a complete player that the Rays could potentially squeeze more value out of him than Big Bob. Now, I will say Big Bob, I think, has the most peak out of the other two. Because, he can just go on a Mikey Mato run and hit 12 home runs in 37 games, and then he could be a game changer. I don't see that kind of production from Pereira and Hunter Fedducia, but they just seem like more stable contributors throughout a regular season.
Yeah, right now, and again, if pitchers are focusing their attention on Brandon Lowe and Yandy Diaz and Junior Caballero and even Chandler Simpson for different reasons, that might allow Bob Seymour to get some pitches to hit here and there. And with him, Xavier Isaac struggling and having issues, Trey Morgan struggling and having issues. Maybe he could be the guy. We've seen before that guys we thought were going to be guys weren't guys, and guys that we didn't have any expectations for, not many expectations for, and they came out from nowhere, ended up making an impact. So that, I feel like there's something there.
All the best for Everson Pereira, for Hunter Fedducia, for Big Bob, obviously, and these are the offensive prospects that we get to see for the next 37 games, and hopefully they all go off. But just make sure, guys, that everybody knows, small sample size, let's be positive, and hopefully they can produce.
Yes, and again, I think dutifully left out Jake Mangum and Chandler Simpson because they're a little bit more established at this point, especially Chandler Simpson. I think, they're still wonderings about Jake Mangum, but I think he's starting to figure it out, and he might, be a guy as well. But we're at some point, we're going to need to find some guys that can bring some power, because we know we're not going to get that from Chandler Simpson or Jake Mangum, but that's something to monitor down the line. In the meantime, thank you all for making the Locked On Rays podcast your first listen today. We appreciate it. For your second listen, check out the Locked On MLB Game Night Show. Every game, every night, all season long. You can find that on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel and wherever you find your podcast.